We are about to see something that could change things up.
Blake Lively seems panicked now that a judge has started publicly challenging the foundation of her lawsuit. The case appears to be unraveling quickly after Daily Mail journalist James Bushka turned, revealing Leslie Sloan's alleged smear effort targeting Justin
There's evidence that Leslie Sloan started a smear campaign against Justin Baldoni.
At the same time, Ryan Reynolds keeps boasting on magazine covers as Blake stays hidden.
She's dead quiet. Someone that's not quiet is her husband, Ryan Reynolds.
Blake Lively's courtroom fiasco has absolutely exploded back on her, and honestly, it's becoming the most ridiculous legal spiral I've watched in years. She truly seemed to believe she could stroll into court, flash that Hollywood grin, shuffle some documents, and bulldoze past everybody. But obviously Magistrate Judge Steve Kim did not buy the performance. At last, a judge who actually uses working brain cells for once here.
And this reporter from the Daily Mail that now there's big rumors that he's going to withdraw his sworn statement.
Blake's newest so-called brilliant move only made things worse. She submitted a motion trying to force Wayfair-related parties to hand over documents as if she personally runs the courtroom, but the judge shut it down fast. Not only did he deny the request, he did it in a way that made the rejection sting. The ruling described her demands as premature, which in legal language is a polite way of saying she jumped the gun and wasted the court's time. The tone made it obvious the court was not impressed with the rush or the drama. Her legal team pushed for a 10-day turnaround, like they were tracking a delivery shipment instead of handling formal procedure, yet the other side had already agreed to provide materials by July 1st, 2025, making her urgency look unnecessary and theatrical. That overreach painted her as impatient and scattered rather than strategic. Things looked even more chaotic when it came out that essentially the same motion had been filed in both California and New York at the same time, creating confusion about where the dispute properly belonged. Filing parallel actions in different courts gave the impression of panic, like tossing papers everywhere and hoping something sticks. The California judge declined to send the matter back to New York, reinforcing that jurisdiction rules actually matter and cannot be bypassed with noise. Altogether, these moves exposed a legal approach that seemed inconsistent, rushed, and poorly coordinated. Then Judge Kim's order added more weight by noting exaggerations about delays and attempts to stretch timelines for advantage, suggesting the court saw through the tactics. That criticism hinted at credibility problems, which is the last thing any litigant wants. The situation grows shakier when looking at the documents supporting the claims. Some of the key records reportedly came through JoanWorks, but they lacked complete metadata. Metadata acts like a digital trail showing when a file was created, edited, and transmitted, which helps establish authenticity. Without it, verifying origin becomes difficult, and opposing counsel can question reliability. Missing metadata does not automatically mean wrongdoing, but it opens the door to arguments about whether materials were altered or gathered improperly. Wayfair's attorneys appear ready to challenge that gap aggressively. Another complication involves timing. If any records were obtained before a formal subpoena date in October 2024, that sequence could raise procedural issues about how evidence was sourced. The narrative also includes blame shifting, with responsibility placed on JoanWorks for providing incomplete data, a defense that courts evaluate carefully rather than accepting at face value. Observers might wonder how such disorganization aligns with a victim narrative, yet public perception and legal standards do not always move together. Adding to the confusion is discussion around an entity called Vans and Inc., described as a shell company now facing scrutiny. Allegations suggest a lawsuit linked to it may have been filed more as leverage than for resolution, though that claim itself would need proof in court. Overall, the picture painted is of a legal battle tangled in procedural missteps, disputed evidence handling, and judicial skepticism, turning what was meant to be a strong case into a complicated, credibility-heavy fight where process details matter as much as the accusations themselves. The situation being described paints an increasingly tangled legal and public relations dispute, with allegations that certain lawsuits and corporate entities may have been used strategically rather than purely for resolution in court. According to this narrative, A company referred to as Vanzen or Vans and Inc. allegedly initiated legal action that critics claim was aimed at accessing phones or private data tied to people involved in the broader conflict, and then withdrew the case once objectives were met, though such claims would ultimately require proof and judicial findings to confirm. The matter reportedly grew more complicated when the company was ordered to produce documents identifying its shareholders by June 24, 2025, and failed to meet that deadline, prompting speculation from opposing counsel that the entity could be closely connected to individuals already central to the dispute. Jennifer Abel's legal representatives are said to believe the company functioned as a front to conduct a smear effort and to navigate around standard discovery procedures, an assertion that, if tested in court, would hinge on documentary evidence rather than rhetoric. Lawyers for Wayfair, as described in this account, are seeking organizational records, ownership information, and communications that could clarify who directed decisions and whether coordination occurred behind the scenes. Resistance to those requests, while not uncommon in high-stakes litigation, can fuel suspicion and intensify judicial scrutiny. Observers argue that missing corporate documents and gaps in production might either reflect administrative disarray or, as critics allege, deliberate withholding, though courts typically require substantiation before drawing conclusions. The broader story also revisits earlier disputes about document metadata, emphasizing how digital records without complete origin data can trigger authentication challenges and procedural fights over admissibility. None of those issues alone determine liability, but together they contribute to a perception of a case bogged down in technical disputes rather than clear factual resolution. Public commentary has framed the legal strategy as chaotic, yet courtroom outcomes depend on motions, evidence standards, and judicial rulings rather than online narratives. The discussion then shifts to journalist James Bushka, portrayed as a significant figure after reportedly distancing himself from prior legal representation connected to his employer and seeking independent criminal defense counsel, a move that commentators interpret as a sign of legal concern, though attorneys are often retained out of caution rather than admission of wrongdoing. Reports of text messages in which he allegedly contradicted earlier sworn statements have circulated, but any inconsistency would need formal evaluation to determine context and credibility. The situation underscores how journalists, sources, and publicists can become entangled when reporting intersects with litigation. Reference is also made to an August 2024 article labeling Justin Baldoni with negative characterizations, which critics believe may have been influenced by public relations sources, while supporters might argue it reflected journalistic judgment based on available information at the time. Claims that Leslie Sloan provided misleading material are contested narratives rather than established fact, and legal processes would be required to sort responsibility. Allegations that Bushka has whistleblower protections suggest cooperation with authorities or legal teams, yet the scope and terms of any such protection are typically confidential. As the story unfolds, commentators describe reputational fallout, arguing that carefully managed public images can erode when legal controversies multiply. Still, reputational perception and courtroom determinations often diverge, with judges focusing narrowly on procedural compliance and evidentiary rules. The account ultimately depicts a conflict where shell company accusations, disputed reporting practices, contested evidence handling, and aggressive discovery battles combine into a complex legal drama. Whether these elements reflect misconduct, miscommunication, or ordinary litigation friction remains a matter for courts, not commentary. What is clear is that once journalists, publicists, corporate entities, and litigants intersect in a high-profile dispute, every filing, deadline, and statement can take on amplified significance, turning procedural skirmishes into headline narratives and leaving final judgments to unfold slowly through the legal system rather than in the court of public opinion alone.
It's crazy. Apparently, the Daily Mail reporter has been granted whistleblower status. So I'm just going to explain again quickly what happened here. So James signs a sworn statement to the judge saying that it was all a misunderstanding, the communication that he had with Leslie.
The latest phase of this dispute shifts attention toward Justin Baldoni, who, according to this account, is actively continuing his legal fight rather than retreating from public controversy. Although his earlier $400 million defamation claim was dismissed, commentary suggests his attorney's view that setback as procedural rather than final, signaling additional filings could follow. His lawyer, Brian Friedman, has reportedly indicated further steps, reinforcing the idea that appellate review or related actions remain possible. Some legal analysts, including a retired judge now offering online commentary, have criticized aspects of the dismissal, arguing it raises constitutional or procedural concerns under California law, though such opinions represent interpretation rather than binding rulings. Baldoni's team is described as challenging how courts balance reputational harm claims with protections against retaliatory litigation, a debate that extends beyond any single case. Appeals are statistically difficult, with relatively low reversal rates, yet pursuing one can still serve strategic purposes, such as preserving issues for review or prompting settlement discussions. Observers note that high-profile attorneys sometimes use litigation to draw attention to disputed narratives, even when courtroom wins are uncertain. If appellate proceedings move forward, they could involve examination of communications, timelines, and digital records, all subject to evidentiary standards and judicial limits. The account also mentions a missed deposition, stating that Blakelively did not appear for scheduled testimony, though reasons for such absences can range from scheduling conflicts to legal objections, and courts typically address them through motions rather than assumption. Comparisons are drawn to a withdrawn lawsuit involving a company called Van Zen, which critics view skeptically, but again those characterizations remain allegations, unless proven in court. Overall, the narrative frames Baldoni as persistent and lively as under pressure, yet final outcomes depend on filings, evidence, and judicial interpretation rather than commentary or online debate. As proceedings continue, both public perception and legal positioning may evolve, but appellate courts focus narrowly on record review, not headlines. Any future rulings would clarify procedural boundaries, evidentiary thresholds, and the extent to which disputed statements are protected speech or actionable claims, shaping how similar conflicts are argued going forward in entertainment industry disputes and media-related litigation alike.
They did not show up at the deposition that was planned with Brian Friedman 2 days ago. I don't know what her deal is, why she didn't show up.
It doesn't simply appear unfavorable. It raises serious questions about credibility in an ongoing legal process. Depositions scheduled for August 14, 2025, are mandatory procedural steps, not optional appearances. Missing one can trigger scrutiny and legal consequences. Public relations efforts may attempt to manage perception, but courts focus on participation, documentation, and compliance with formal obligations.
What I've heard is that all depositions must be in by August 14.
What makes this whole saga even more ironic is how loud Blake was when things went her way. Remember when Baldoni's previous lawsuit was dismissed? Blake immediately took to Instagram, framing herself as the victim-turned-hero, posting cryptic stories and celebrating like she'd won an Oscar for her performance. Now, dead silent. Not a single post, no commentary, nothing. The so-called strong, independent woman suddenly can't even show up when the court calls. Meanwhile, Ryanreynolds is out there working overtime to salvage the narrative. His PR team is plastering magazine covers with his face, promoting the image of an untouchable Hollywood power couple. Blake, by contrast, is hiding behind the scenes, skipping depositions as if confronting the truth is her worst nightmare. Missing these legal obligations isn't just embarrassing, it signals serious red flags, potentially inviting sanctions, legal penalties, and public backlash. Her team is scrambling to contain the fallout while the world watches her carefully curated empire collapse. The courts, however, aren't swayed by Instagram grids or polished interviews. Judges care about facts, evidence, and truth. Right now, Blakelively is avoiding all three. From Vushka flipping on her narrative to Baldoni's ongoing legal counterpunches and her own courtroom no-shows, the walls are closing in. Her fairy tale image is unraveling, and no PR stunt, smug Instagram story, or hidden shell company will fix the damage, but the circus doesn't stop there. Ryanreynolds is now squarely in the spotlight. He's far from a mere bystander. He's front row, center stage, and practically selling popcorn while Blake's reputation goes up in flames. Reynolds has plastered his company's image across Time 100 covers, presenting himself as a selfless, inspiring businessman. The timing couldn't be more absurd. While Blake faces legal scrutiny, judge criticism, flipping witnesses, and a tanking brand, Ryan grins for the cameras, pretending none of it is happening. It's almost laughable how both are clinging to this golden couple image while the public sees right through it. There's also a stark layer of hypocrisy. Reynolds has embarked on a moralizing interview tour about accountability, yet he's married to Blake, who's dodging subpoenas and filing questionable lawsuits. The only accountability he seems invested in is ensuring his PR machine keeps spinning, controlling the optics, and preventing a total public meltdown. Even more absurdly, while claiming that public opinion doesn't matter, he spends excessive energy shutting down criticism, deleting comments, and meticulously curating media appearances. For someone claiming indifference to public perception, his behavior screams insecurity rather than confidence. Meanwhile, the public sees the evidence firsthand. Blake's latest product, Blake Brown, intended as a flagship brand moment, is already gathering dust on clearance shelves in New York. It was supposed to sustain her empire while legal troubles mounted, but it's become another symbol of failed celebrity ventures, a PR funeral, not a triumph. Behind the scenes, Leslie Sloan, Blake's fixer and purported puppet master, continues to complicate matters. She has audaciously demanded actions that intensify the legal chaos rather than resolve it. The interplay between Sloan's maneuvers, Blake's avoidance of depositions, and the ongoing media coverage has turned the entire situation into a tangled spectacle. Even the attempts to orchestrate PR spin highlight the contrast between public image and the harsh realities of legal proceedings. Taken together, every failed lawsuit, missed deposition, and abandoned public effort paints a picture of disorganization and desperation. Blake's avoidance, combined with Ryan's performative interventions, emphasizes a stark divide between curated celebrity persona and the unflinching scrutiny of courts, journalists, and the public. While Reynolds works to frame the narrative as business as usual, the underlying legal and reputational crises continue to intensify. The juxtaposition between the image they attempt to project and the unfolding reality has created a perfect storm, exposing contradictions, failed branding attempts, and the consequences of trying to control perception amid genuine accountability. From the fallout of Blake Brown to courtroom battles, flipped witnesses, and PR stunts collapsing under scrutiny, the entire saga reads less like a polished celebrity story and more like a cautionary tale in high-profile legal mismanagement. The empire Blake sought to protect is crumbling. Reynolds' attempts to salvage appearances are transparent, and the public narrative continues to highlight the disparity between image and reality. Every misstep, from missed depositions to failing product launches, compounds the spectacle, leaving her once carefully curated persona hanging in tatters, proving that no amount of PR spin can substitute for accountability and factual transparency. Blake Lively's attempt to claim vindication by having Wayfair cover her legal fees couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is painting a very different picture, with James Vushka's texts and whistleblower status exposing serious contradictions in the story. Leslie Sloan can deny bad-mouthing Justinbaldoni all she wants, but her own communications with Vushka suggest otherwise. This wasn't a harmless PR blunder. It's portrayed as a coordinated smear campaign, with evidence piling up fast. Legal filings allege that Sloan employed every tactic imaginable to keep Vushka quiet. Job threats, manipulation, and pressure campaigns more fitting of a political scandal than a Hollywood dispute. If Sloan's involvement is fully revealed, Blake's entire lawsuit risks collapse, exposing orchestrated media manipulation that no Instagram post or magazine cover could ever fix. Courts are already noticing the inconsistencies, and the judge's refusal to fast-track Blake's demands signals growing skepticism. Sloan and Blake can spin narratives all they want, but the legal system is not buying it, and it's only a matter of time before their carefully constructed house of cards comes tumbling down. The grand finale of this legal disaster is unfolding rapidly. Judge Lyman has expressed doubt over Blake's extreme conspiracy claims and is seriously considering dismissing portions of her case for lack of jurisdiction. Behind the scenes, Blake's team is scrambling to salvage whatever credibility remains. One of the most critical threats is the potential dismissal of key defendant Jed Wallace, who is allegedly central to the supposed digital smear operation, the very linchpin of Blake's story. If he is removed, the foundation of her case could be obliterated, and the narrative she spent so long constructing would collapse faster than Blake Brown's flopped product launch. The list of missteps continues to grow. Missing metadata?
Check.
Sham lawsuits filed and conveniently dropped?
Check.
Botched depositions?
Check.
Whistleblowers flipping?
Check.
It's like watching a slow-motion car crash with Blake behind the wheel, flooring the accelerator while pretending she knows what she's doing. Public backlash is intensifying. The Blake Brown flop was just the beginning. The time cover hypocrisy, staged interviews, and frantic damage control all highlight how fragile her polished, relatable persona has become. The deeper this disaster unfolds, the clearer it is that Blake's meltdown extends far beyond courtrooms, affecting Hollywood perception, media coverage, collapsing brand deals, and fading fan support. The narrative she once tightly controlled is slipping away, and no PR stunt, shell company, or celebrity endorsement can glue it back together. This isn't just a legal debacle, it's a full-scale implosion of the lively Reynolds empire, unraveling one botched deposition, exposed email, and failed product at a time. Watching them scramble to patch leaks while the truth surfaces is a spectacle unlike anything Hollywood has delivered in years. Even her public image outside the courts is deteriorating. Brands are distancing themselves, fans are questioning everything, and insiders admit the polished, relatable facade is cracking under pressure. The backlash isn't limited to online commentary. It's coming from those who once admired her, realizing the perfect persona was carefully curated smoke and mirrors. Every red carpet photo and staged interview was part of a controlled narrative, and now that control is slipping fast, when legal drama overshadows a career, there's a real problem. Ryanreynolds PR maneuvers aren't helping, they're intensifying skepticism. Every interview, staged appearance, and timed product launch seems forced as this legal chaos unfolds. The public notices the cracks, the contradictions, and the desperate spinning. With whistleblowers stepping forward, judges questioning key claims, and critical defendants potentially being dismissed, Blake's once untouchable reputation is crumbling faster than anyone expected. This is more than a courtroom meltdown. It's a full-blown Hollywood image crisis. No PR team can fix a collapse of this magnitude. Blake Lively's carefully constructed empire is sinking rapidly, and this disaster is only just beginning. Subscribers better stay tuned. The next twists in this unraveling saga are guaranteed to be brutal.